Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Paschatya Dasatarine. The other day I was listening to a lecture and Prabhupada said something which he's often said. And he said, don't think that I am joking, don't think that I am bribing, don't think I'm making this up, don't think I'm just saying things just to make you feel good. But it's a fact that if you follow this Krishna consciousness, you will go back to Godhead in this life. And many, many times Prabhupada made similar points in various ways that we will go back to Godhead. And in another lecture, these are just lectures that I've heard recently, not that I was searching for this topic, but in another lecture Prabhupada was saying, you will go back to Godhead in this life. That's what the Krishna consciousness movement is for. That's what it will do. But it wasn't. You could see the way Prabhupada was explaining this, there was like no doubt that this process would not be effective. It would be effective and it would take you back to Godhead. I think that's significant. That shows that this process works, and this is Prabhupada. This is Prabhupada's mission. And it's possible for all of us if we follow well, or as well as we can. The other thing is, there are different times that Prabhupada explained how you would get back to Godhead. You may remember a few days ago, we read a quote in response to a question about how to go back to Godhead, or what the qualification is. And Prabhupada quoted the verse, Janma Karma Chamveti, in truth, my janma, my birth, my karma, my activities, Tyakta Deha Punar Janma. When he gives up this body, he won't take another birth. Mom 80, he'll come to me. So in answer to this question or inquiry about how to go back to Godhead, Prabhupada gave this answer. If you know Krishna in truth, you'll go back to Godhead. And is it difficult to know Krishna in truth? Well, Prabhupada has given his books. And so if you read his books, you know Krishna in truth. And also, if you also have to follow the process so you imbibe, you actually understand, because it's not just intellectual process. You have to be somewhat purified. So Prabhupada has given us the Siddhanta. This is Krishna. He's given us the process by which we can realize Krishna, understand his birth, transcendental nature of his birth, excuse me, and activities. And so that's one example where Prabhupada is saying, you can go back to Godhead in a specific way. There were several letters in which Prabhupada wrote to the Sankirtan devotees. He said, if you continue book distribution, you do this service, you'll go back to Godhead in this life. Which you could understand in different ways. If you do the service, you'll be purified enough to go back to Godhead. You do the service, you'll get enough mercy that you'll go back to Godhead. You do the service, you'll get enough mercy that you'll be purified enough to go back to Godhead. But he didn't give details. But the first impression I got was that you do this service, it'll please Krishna so much, he'll just, he'll take you. That's your reward. Then Prabhupada told, I'm not sure, maybe it was Jayapataka Maharaj or several devotees in Mayapur, you build this temple, Bhaktivinoda Thakur will take you back to Godhead. Personally come and take you. One time he said, if you bring some important person like the King and Queen of England to the opening, and Bhaktivinoda will come and take you back to Godhead, or I'll come and take you back to Godhead. I forget the details, but the general point was, you do this service, it's so important to me, to the Acharyas, to Mahaprabhu, that if you do that, you'll get so much mercy, you'll go back to Godhead. Then, of course, we know many times Prabhupada said 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles, 16 rounds without offense, 4 regulative principles, and in this life you'll go back to Godhead. So that were 4 or 5 different contexts in which Prabhupada said you go back to Godhead. Take your choice, everyone. If you can't do one, do the other. So you have like 5 ways you can get out of the material world. Now, of course, we should do them all. But my point in presenting this is that Prabhupada never presented going back to Godhead like this is going to be a real problem for most of you. And most of you, it's going to take many lifetimes. He presented it as we have a process and we have Shastra, and with our knowledge and with our process, we can go back to Godhead in this lifetime. And it's interesting because some of you may know this, that Prabhupada has said at different places, at different times, that if you have a little desire, you can't go back to Godhead because you have a desire to be in this world, then you'll come back because Krishna is just fulfilling your desire, and unless you're pure, you can't go there. Which makes all these statements interesting that Prabhupada is saying, because when Prabhupada said if you have a pinch of desire, you can't go back to Godhead, everybody thought, oh, well, I'll never go back to Godhead because seems like I'll always have some desire, for something, some little thing, maybe just, I like tomatoes or something, and I like them so much I don't want to go back to Godhead. It seems ridiculous, but he's saying a pinch of desire. So it certainly seems like we would have a pinch of desire for something. And then Prabhupada's saying on the other side of the equation that if you do these things, you'll go back to Godhead, which indicates some, at least to me, some kind of extraordinary mercy that transcends and all other conditions, that purifies us, that endears us to Prabhupada in such a way that, okay, I'll take care of it, don't worry. So there is this sense, definitely in what Prabhupada's saying, is that you do this and, we take care of everything, like a vacation, here's the package, everything's included, you don't have to worry about anything, pick up from the airport, all your meals, your room, all the tours, everything. So something like that. So I think that's important for us, because it can seem like maybe impossible in my present state, or in this life, for me to go back to Godhead. But Prabhupada, I think we can say that Prabhupada is keeping score maybe in a different way than we keep score. We're keeping score looking, well, look at me, look at my desires, look at the level of my practice. I keep score that way. Prabhupada's keeping score in a different way. Here's a process. This process will bring you to Krishna. These services will endear you to Krishna, endear you to me, endear you to the previous acharyas. So, I think we might look at going back to Godhead a little bit in a ritualistic or in terms of a formula, or like in school, in terms of passing an exam. And the way Prabhupada's explaining it is not exactly like that. It's somewhat like that. 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles. But there were no qualifiers. Well, the sannyasis will, grihastas, you have like 50% chance. Although sometimes it's said that if you become a grihasta, like 50% or 75% chance. But what that meant was there's more opportunity to fall. There's more opportunity for sense gratification. But we know opportunity is there in every ashram. So Prabhupada didn't mean that once you become a grihasta, it's hopeless and useless. He didn't distinguish that way. Oh, we'll all go back to Godhead, but the grihastas, forget them. Their life is too materialistic. It was never like that. So what we see from the things that Prabhupada is saying is there's a connection of you've done something to please to please your guru, to please Prabhupada, to please the previous acharyas, to please Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That's it. Once you've done that, you can go back to Godhead. That's the sense, not, well, how good were your rounds? How good were your 4 regular principles? Did you ever slip? How many times did you slip? Well, if you slip more than 3 times in your life, you'll have to come back again. It was never presented like that. And Prabhupada knew his disciples were slipping. He wasn't oblivious to that. But he knew his disciples were sincere, and he knew that at a certain point their bhakti would become steady. And we can also say, as many of my godbrothers have said, that with Prabhupada's connection with Krishna, he could strike up a deal with Krishna, that these devotees are dedicating their lives for spreading Krishna consciousness, they're doing austerity and so forth. So, let them in the back door if they're not fully qualified. So that sense is definitely there, that here is a pure devotee coming to get us out of the material world. And this is what Krishna wants, and this is what Mahaprabhu wants. Now, if it's so difficult and impossible and so rare, then it's almost like pointless in having a movement, because the goal of the movement is to take everyone back to Godhead. So it becomes pointless in having a movement that's intended to take people back to Godhead if it can't deliver, if it can't actually do that, if it's really a false promise, if we're really leading people on, but really we can't take them back to Godhead. So Prabhupada's mission was not just to start a movement to get people to chant and take prasadam. It was to take people back to Godhead. That's Krishna's desire. Krishna wants us to go. And so Prabhupada's coming as Krishna's servant to fulfill that. So Prabhupada wouldn't have done that if the process didn't work. There are many, many lectures where Prabhupada said, chanting Hare Krishna and taking prasadam, this is so powerful, this process is so powerful, that the whole world could become Krishna conscious if they all did this. We might be thinking, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam, and still I'm attached to, watching these movies, reading these books, listening to this music, and so on. That may be true, but if you continue chanting and you become more sincere and become more offenseless in your chanting, then you will see more and more you will become detached, and definitely become detached and more attached to Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Could it be my mic is not on? It could not be. Oh, the wrong mic. Sorry. That's better, right? Hare Krishna. Now, hold on. Now it's better. Yeah, you were hearing me from a distance. I had the wrong mic on. Sorry about that. Did you hear what I was saying? Was it, do I have to say it again? Because, should I repeat what I was saying, or did you not hear it? It's better now, but you kind of heard me from a distance, right? Barely heard me. Yeah, it's better. I had this set up for, yeah. Yeah, I had it set up wrong. I had it set up for Sunday. We were doing kirtan. Interesting. Yeah. It was the wrong button. The devil's in the details. Okay. So, what I'm expressing is sympathizing with all of you who feel like, I don't know if I can go back to Godhead. I don't feel qualified. I don't see how it's possible. I don't see how I'll become purified. And I think it's very normal to feel that way. And it's not bad to feel that way. It's a kind of, it's realistic and it's humble. But my point is that if we take our feelings and we place them next to the things that Prabhupada said, he told us in different contexts how by doing this, by doing that, we would go back to Godhead. So I don't think we can undermine those statements. I don't think we can brush them aside and say, oh, that's for another devotee, or, that's not me, because I'm not doing Sankirtan now. Well, I may not be doing book distribution, but we're dedicating our lives, or at least as much as we can, to sharing Krishna consciousness. We're all helping in some way to build Mayapur. We all understand Krishna Leela to some degree. So we're chanting, we're doing the things that Prabhupada said would take us back to Godhead. And I think more than material desire, perhaps the thing that would be most detrimental, keeping us in the material world, would be offending devotees to such a degree that we would give up bhakti, or we would be unable to perform pure bhakti. But pure bhakti means that I purely want to please my guru. I may not be such a pure devotee, but my desire to please him is very strong. And I want that more than anything. And I don't center my life around what I want. I center my life around what he wants, what Srila Prabhupada wants. That's considered pure bhakti. And so Prabhupada confirmed in many ways, if we have that mood, then yes, we according to Prabhupada, will go back to Godhead in this lifetime. The other thing, which I think is important for us, I've spoken about before, worth mentioning again, it's actually a service to Prabhupada, a service to your spiritual master, to go back to Godhead, because that's what when you're initiated, when you become their disciple, it's a contract, and they're agreeing to take you back to Godhead. So that's their service to you as spiritual master. And the agreement is that they will help you go back to Godhead through their instructions, through their guidance. And you will take that guidance so that you can go back to Godhead. So just use myself as an example. My contract with my disciples is, or my commitment, based on what the job, the duty, the job descriptions, so to speak, of the spiritual master, is to take their disciples back to Godhead. So it's kind of like we use this idea of a contract. Okay, you're initiated, or even if you're not initiated, you accept this person as your guru. So he accepts you. I will now take responsibility for your spiritual life to take you back to Godhead. But in order for me to take responsibility, the disciple has to also take responsibility to do the things that will help the disciple. It's like if I were a doctor and I say, I'm taking responsibility for your health, but you have to do what I ask you. So the contract, it works both ways. So if a disciple says, I don't think I can go back to Godhead, I don't want to go back to Godhead, I'm not trying to go back to Godhead, no, that's wrong thinking, because that's against the contract. Because the contract with the guru is, I'm taking shelter, and therefore the guru and Prabhupada, or we should say Prabhupada, the guru is taking you to Prabhupada, who will take you back to Godhead. That's what Prabhupada wants the guru to do. And so when you accept that person as a guru, you're part of your service, although it sounds strange and selfish, but part of your service is to go back to Godhead, because that's his service. And you're helping your guru in his service, and his service is to take you back to Godhead. So even if you don't want to go, out of service to him, you have to want to go, or you have to do the things that will take you back to Godhead. Does that make sense? It's a service. Tanya said, in one of your previous lessons, you mentioned example of a renowned godbrother who left his body and was reborn as a boy, Jodi family, and light. Today's topic, how can we understand? Oh, good question. There's only two reasons that we would be reborn. They were so special that Prabhupada wants us to come back and do service, or we weren't yet completely purified. Something was still. A lot of these stories sometimes happen when someone dies and they're young and they're not mature in their bhakti. So my understanding, when Prabhupada's saying, if you do this, you'll go back to Godhead, he's looking at it in terms of their whole life. You do this for your entire life, end of your life, you will be ready to go back to Godhead. So, if the person died young and didn't have time to mature, or the person didn't execute their sadhana well, or their service well enough, and weren't able to hit that level of maturity and still needed more work, had to come back, that could be one of the reasons. At least that's my impression when Prabhupada was saying you'll go back to God in this lifetime. He was, he's saying you dedicate your life. That means you would become mature by dedicating your life. It can also mean that in some case we have an attachment that's very strong, that we can't give up, or we're unwilling to give up. And that would cause us to come back. That's generally how Prabhupada explained it. If we have some desire still unfulfilled materially, it's strong. It's not some little low frequency, little buzz that happens once in a while, but it's pretty strong frequency. It's still there. Then we would come back, or even go to a higher planet to fulfill it. I mean, the way Krishna works is interesting because he fulfills desires. And he fulfills desires sometimes even that the devotee doesn't want fulfilled. I have this desire, but Krishna don't fulfill it because it's not a good desire. Like Dhruva Maharaj. He had this desire to be more powerful than his father. And then when he saw Krishna, the desire just, it vanished. It was like, that's a stupid desire. I have Krishna. This is better. And Krishna gave him a planet, and Dhruva Maharaj said, well, I don't really want it anymore. And he said, yeah, but you did. You did before. So I'm going to give it to you. Yeah. So sometimes Krishna's like that. It's like they say you have to be careful what you desire. So sometimes he knows what you want and said, okay, I know you want to enjoy. Okay, you can enjoy for 10,000 years on heaven. Come back here and finish up your bhakti. So we have to be a little bit careful because Krishna, he gives you what you want. So if you're purified, you want to go back to Godhead, that's your mission in life, which it should be. And Prabhupada asked us to make it our mission. Then we're in a good position. If our mission in life is, well, I'll try to go back to Godhead, but I'm not very advanced. I'm not sure. I don't know if I can do this. I really I really have this aspiration for A, B, and C. And, then it's not like we're really following, it's not like we're really following. I did find medicine that helped us, but put me to sleep. But I still have to get Dr. Vijaya Lakshmi's medicine. I got some other medicine. It worked great, except I was falling asleep when I was giving classes, and everyone was falling asleep. There was a devotee actually fell asleep during class. And I was told everyone in the class was asleep. That's an interesting picture. So I like to focus on this concept that Prabhupada's mission is to take us back to Godhead. Therefore, our mission in pleasing Prabhupada is not to take devotional service and well, maybe this life, maybe the next. But no, this life, this is what he wants. And it's possible through the process. And when we say it's possible through the process, it means that potentially it's possible for anyone who takes to it. Now, someone may say, well, I'm not that advanced, or I'm not that serious, or I'm not that this or that. But the point is, if you become that serious, or you become that strict, or become that determined, then, Prabhupada said, it can work. You might say, well, what if according to your past life, you come in this life, you're not that determined, not that strict? That does have some influence. But Prabhupada's point was always, but if you decide in this life to be strict, to be more faithful, etc., then you can do it. And so Prabhupada's logic was, so why not do it? So even if you're not as advanced as this other devotee, like we were talking about Bhakti Charaswami, like even so, he took to Krishna consciousness like that and just kind of like soared above most devotees. Obviously advanced from a previous life. Does that mean that it's not available to us fallen malechas, yavanas, born in the West? I think we can say, Hare Krishna, I think we can say realistically that if you're born in the West, if you were raised eating meat, if you didn't follow the regulative principles growing up, yeah, it is more challenging than if you were born in Indian culture, vegetarian, what to speak of your parents or devotees. That is a big advantage, there's no question. But if you just look at the statistics, those who are born in advantageous positions don't always rise above those who are not. Because those who are not born in advantageous positions, if they take advantage of the process of bhakti, they rise high very quickly. And so, we can use it as an excuse that I don't really have a desire and I wasn't raised in this proper environment and I was exposed to so many things. And it's true, it does have an effect. But if you study Prabhupada's preaching, he never felt it had such an effect that it would prevent you from becoming Krishna conscious. That's the point. It's not strong enough to stop you. And if it were, he would have just seen it and he would have said, it's not going to work in America. I'm going to go back to India and preach in India because they have piety. It's not going to work in America. It's not going to work in Europe. It's not going to work in Africa. It's not going to work in South America. It's not going to work in Russia, China. But it's interesting also because in the second canto, it lists different races of people that are considered outside Vedic culture, and any race outside of Vedic culture is considered, you could say, handicapped spiritually. Like they don't have the samskars. They're not thoroughbreds for spiritual life. And so it lists them all. And all these different places, the Russians, the Chinese, the Mongolians, etc., the Europeans, it lists them all. And these were all places that Prabhupada said, go there and preach. So, the Bhagavatam was saying all these races, which would be previously considered unfit for bhakti, they're fit for bhakti in Kali Yuga. So that was kind of the message you get from Prabhupada. The tenor of his message was, well, yes, if you've engaged in sinful life, it will make some impression, and in certain stage of bhakti, you will kind of be up and down because of that. But in and of itself, it's not enough it won't handicap you enough that you can't succeed in this life. That's the message, and that's a very important message. Because what comes from our own heart is, I don't know if I can succeed because of how I was raised, or how I was raised and lived in many lives. It sometimes seems like, I don't know if this lust will ever go away, or if this envy will go away, or this greed, or this desire for wealth, or success, or fame, or whatever. I don't know if it'll go away. And what Prabhupada is saying is, if you stay in the process long enough, it will go away. It may seem like it won't. And if you if you talk to senior devotees, just ask them this question: did it ever seem like when you were younger you would never achieve the position you achieve now in terms of your level of taste and detachment and dedication? And they'll all say, yeah, I knew because Prabhupada said it was possible, but I didn't really know for sure. It didn't seem. It wasn't clear. And they might say things like, yeah, and there were times that I doubted it because I just, Maya really, I really had bouts with Maya, and I doubted that I could be Krishna conscious. But Prabhupada's point was, no matter what the situation is, the process of bhakti is pure. And if you're sincere, and if you have a desire, and you're willing to follow, you'll be successful. And then you have this example of Mrigari the hunter. It's like really, really, I don't want to use the word low class, because it's not politically correct. Let's use the word, and it's not philosophically what we're trying to say. Let's describe him. He was a very mean person, very unsympathetic person. Not what you would consider a person in an ideal situation to become a devotee. He was raised in a family that made a living killing animals. And they enjoyed killing animals in a way that animals suffered. And this is what he did. And you could imagine if he's doing that, drinking and other things would seem to accompany that, right? So we can just imagine he was not in a good situation. He became Krishna conscious, very Krishna conscious. You look at Ajamil. Of course, Ajamil was a Brahmin. But when Ajamil gave up his Brahminical activities, we hear that he became attracted to a prostitute and he married her, or he lived with her. But he maintained himself as a thief for some reason. That's the only way he figured he could make money. And Prabhupada said, if you have a relation with a prostitute, if illicit sex is like the base, a really foundational relationship with a woman, it's going to cause all kinds of degradation, intoxication, etc. So we understand Ajamil, he pretty much hit rock bottom in the sinful activity department. But when he had his revelation, then again he took up his bhakti, and then again when he took up his bhakti, everything was okay. We also see this within our own movement, that somebody has difficulty and they leave. They needed maybe to experience Maya a little more. They come back and they say, okay, I've had enough. And then they take up devotional service seriously, like when they were younger devotees, seriously. And it's almost like that area of life where they slipped and didn't follow was a bit like a dream, and now they've just woken up and they're doing really well. So this is the point. Within the process is the potency. And even though we may not be so qualified, but within the process is the potency. Uncultured, fallen, degraded, degenerated. We know what we're talking about. Or just even if it's not degraded, it's just materialistic. Materialistic habits that are deeply impressed within our hearts. And so, just try to understand this context. We're going to look at it from Prabhupada's position, and I've explained this before, but I think it's worth discussing in this context. Prabhupada comes to New York. The first thing is that he comes. So coming means it's possible. He wasn't sure if it was possible, but he was willing to try. If you read the Markandeya Bhagavad Dharma, Markandeya Bhagavad Dharma, the prayers when Prabhupada's on the boat, there was doubt, because Prabhupada was asking how, America is the most materialistic country, and the Bhagavatam is the most pure, sublime spiritual knowledge. How can a materialistic mind understand it? But I've been ordered to preach it. So this is like conundrum. Like, I've been ordered to preach something that I doubt they can understand. So then Prabhupada says, but Krishna, you can do two things. You can make my speaking in such a way that they'll understand, and from within their heart you can help them understand. So Prabhupada was like, how is this possible? But it can be possible. So I think it's exactly what we're talking about. Like, how can I be Krishna conscious? But Prabhupada's saying I can be. So Prabhupada's coming, he begins to preach. He's assessing, or as you say in Europe or other places, sussing out. If you don't know what the word sussing out means, it means assessing it, basically. Checking it out. Instead of saying, I was checking it out, at least in South Africa, maybe Europe, they say, I was sussing it out. Suss it out, Prabhu. Check it out. Analyze it. Assess it. So it's quite interesting. I mean, think of this. Prabhupada is dealing with a class of people, or people engaged in activities which he never had any contact with. As Prabhupada joked when he was asked, what's a hippie? He said, something very unusual. So you can imagine it was unusual for Prabhupada. Like, these people are unusual. So there he is, long-haired people, pretty drugged out, pretty sexed out. And he never thought, this is not going to work with them. This is like, he looked at them and said, this can work. Taking prasadam and chanting Hare Krishna can work. He had that faith. He didn't doubt the process. And I think this is significant, because if this process could not purify the lowest of the low, if it could not purify anyone willing to follow it, Prabhupada wouldn't have spent so much time in America. He would have just gone back and said, no, let's just go back to India. Maybe I can bring a few disciples. The rest of Americans, they'll never do this. And we'll focus on India. That's where they can do it. And I think that makes this statement really clear, that if I think I can't be Krishna conscious, if I think I can't go back to God in this lifetime, at least remember that Prabhupada thinks you can. And Prabhupada gave you a process that can do it, and Prabhupada wants you to do it. That's why the whole what's the point of ISKCON? Why does it exist? To take people back to Godhead, and then to do everything on this planet which would facilitate. So the ultimate purpose of ISKCON is to take people out of this world. The secondary purposes, or the additional purposes, the practical purposes, are to do things, engage in activities which facilitate that. That's what it is. So I think that's important for all of us to understand in terms of our duty. Like, we're members of ISKCON, what is our duty? Yes, it's to preach Krishna consciousness, but it's also to prepare ourselves to go back to Godhead. And preaching Krishna consciousness means to help people prepare themselves to go back to Godhead. That's what the movement is. This is a back to Godhead movement. That's why the magazine Back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. So I would hope for all of you to reframe your thinking in this way. If I can't do something, and we all feel inadequate, and that, as I said, that is a manifestation of humility. But for some of us, it's not always humility. It's just we're saying, I'm not humble. It's just, this is real. This is just how I feel, unqualified. Look at my activities, unqualified. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. I know, I can relate to that. I understand that. But we have to contextualize this differently. That ultimately, my journey back to Godhead is not going to be a journey that I make alone. It's going to be through the mercy of all the Vaishnavas, all my Siksha gurus, my guru, Srila Prabhupada, the Bhagavatam, the deity. It's going to be this synergistic effort. And when you look at that synergistic effort, you're only one part of actually something much greater than you. So the Bhagavatam is helping you, the deities are helping you, the Prasadam is helping you, the Kirtan is helping you, the Japa is helping you. Prabhupada is helping you, your Guru is helping you, your Siksha Gurus are helping you, the Sangha is helping you. So it's not just you alone pulling yourself up by your own strength. And when you understand that, there's a whole process that's doing it, basically doing it for you if you're willing to do the process, that it's not relying solely on whether I'm qualified or not, but the process is capable of doing it. That's the point. It's like, let's say I go to a gym and I'm like all flabby, and I walk in thinking, I'll never be muscular. I never have been, I never will be. And the person says, no, but we have these different exercise machines, and if you use them every day, they're scientifically designed to work with different muscles on your body, to strengthen your muscles. So if you just do this, you will be a muscle man. You're thinking, I can never be a muscle man. Look at how skinny I am. I hardly have any muscle on me. I said, no. You use these machines, you drink this protein, you take these vitamins. It will work. So you have some faith and you do it. So you go on the machine and you're doing the machine and you don't understand how it's working. But like a few weeks later, a few months later, you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, it actually works. So all glories to the machines, all glories to the whey protein, all glories to those vitamins that build muscles. So it's something like that. Are you willing to go on the machine? Because the machine will do it for you. Are you willing to try to chant good rounds? Are you willing to try every day to read Prabhupada's books? Are you willing to try to get Sangha? Are you willing to have some form of deity worship, puja, in your house? Are you willing to do some service? If you're willing, the process works on you. And then it starts to make more sense when Prabhupada saying, if you do this, at the end of your life, you'll go back to Godhead. Not because we're qualified, but because we did the processes which would qualify us. It's like, I'm not that smart, but if I can get into a very good university and I apply myself, I may have to study harder than other students because I'm not so smart. But if I do it, I can become somebody. I can become a professor. I can get a master's degree. I can even get a PhD. And I thought, I'm not that smart. But I applied myself to a process. And the teachers help you. Say, do this, study this, get this tutoring, whatever you need. It's like that. If you do these processes, you will be successful. And the only thing, ultimately, that can keep us in the material world is just our unwillingness. Yeah. Yes. The only thing ultimately, and this is like the hard truth and reality, which we'll have to deal with, and it's kind of painful. But the reality is that the only thing that can prevent us from being successful in our Krishna consciousness is our unwillingness to execute the process well, or our unwillingness to develop the proper mentality, or our unwillingness to do what is necessary. That's the only thing that can stop us. Nothing else can stop us. And sometimes this unwillingness is irrational. And Maya she's so expert in creating irrational excuses. And due to my position, I hear many irrational excuses. Or at least when you're not the person making the excuses, you have objectivity. And when I look at it objectively, these excuses, they don't make sense to me because it's an excuse for not surrendering to Krishna. So I'm thinking, why would anyone want an excuse for not surrendering to Krishna? But when the person's making it, it seems so rational. It seems so logical. It seems so, this is just how it is. This is the reality. And I look at it and think, I understand what you're saying. I understand how you feel. But why would you allow yourself to look at things this way? Why would you allow yourself to experience these emotions if the result of it is that it's taking you away from Krishna consciousness? It's taking you away from your guru. It's taking you away from Prabhupada. It doesn't make any sense. That's the power of Maya. She can create so much irrationality in our mind, which turns into excuses to explain why I think I'm not going to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So if we understand the goal is to go back to Godhead, then when we see obstacles, okay, here's an obstacle. I'm being irrational. I have an excuse of why I can't go back to Godhead. What we should do, rather than allow that excuse to guide us, we should look at that excuse and ask ourselves, how can I correct this? Because this is a problem. How can I look at this differently? How can I understand this differently? How can I deal with it in a way that it no longer becomes an excuse? And what a lot of us do, it's kind of like the excuses become our comfort zone. It's like we need them because that can explain away all my anarthas. Like, well, of course I have these anarthas because, and then we bring out the excuse, and then we feel good because the excuse explains, well, I don't get up early, I don't chant good rounds because, and I'm not serious because, and that one excuse becomes like the universal excuse to like relieve all the guilt and shame that should actually come, that could stimulate or inspire me to be more Krishna conscious if I didn't have the excuse. But I need the excuse because I don't really ultimately want to be Krishna conscious, but I don't want to feel guilty or shameful. So what I'm saying is, if the mission is to go back to Godhead, then you find those things that are getting in the way, and you analyze them, and you look at them, and you realize, yes, I'm making this excuse so I can have a rationale for being in Maya. That's really stupid. If my goal is to back to God, if my goal is to go back to God, this excuse is probably the main reason that I wouldn't be successful in my Krishna consciousness. So that's what we're supposed to do, be more analytical. Okay, what's the problem? What's holding me here? And what do I need to do? And if we do that, then Prabhupada's words, you can become Krishna conscious and go back to Godhead in this lifetime, then Prabhupada's words are successful. Now, some of you listening to this are my disciples. Some of you are disciples of other gurus. Some of you are thinking about who your guru is. But in every situation you're in, just try to understand your guru, his meditation on you as a disciple is, how do I get you out of this place? I have to get you out of here. And he can't get you out of here if you're not willing to cooperate with him. Let's go, run, Maya's coming. Oh, I can't run. I'm too tired. Run, she's going to attack you. Just run somehow or other. No, I can't go. I'm too tired. I have to tell you this story. This is amazing. This is like, okay, this will have some entertainment value. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was inspired by Michael Jordan. Interesting, right? And Tamal Krishna Maharaj is like, he wants to be the best in everything he does. And he said, Michael Jordan was so good. He was like an icon for me. It was an icon, a role model in a sense. And he's thinking, how can you have a non-devotee as a role model? Because you're taking an aspect of something that is really something that would inspire you or something that you resonate with that person. And I think like with some people in Tamal Krishna Maharaj, it's like this ideal of achievement, of of being the best you can and achieving the most you can, and, or doing everything perfectly. So I don't know if he watched him play basketball or how it was, but he was an icon for me, for Tamal Krishna, not for me. And I had this fascination with Muhammad Ali because I have not his mentality, but his like people who are dedicated and determined to achieve something. So he's, some of these boxers, they're like amazing. They inspire me, and they're like, I'm determined to be number one. That's the kind of the mood of the boxers. I'm number one, I will be number one. So in my interest, I did something. I don't know. I kind of want to recommend you do this, but I can't recommend it because it's not Krishna conscious. And he's like, why did you do something Krishna conscious? It had a very Krishna conscious effect on me. So I will have, you could say, I ate the poison, I digested it, and I'll give it to you. If you know anything about Muhammad Ali, I don't think it was until he was older, he should have stopped fighting, that he started losing, but nobody could beat him. He was such a good fighter. And he almost got beat in a fight with a boxer named Joe Frazier. And the interesting thing about this fight, it was like in the Jarasandha, I think it was Jarasandha and Bhima, like nobody could win the fight. They were evenly matched, and they're just fighting all day and nobody could win. So that fight was like that. It was like nobody could win. And they were fighting 15 rounds, and about the 12th round, both the fighters said, I don't have the energy to fight anymore. I don't know if I can fight anymore. And the trainers are like, you have to fight, So they were both in the same position, like either one of them could have destroyed the other because they were both so weak if they just had enough strength to fight hard enough. And they were both struggling just to stay in the ring and fight as best they can and tolerate the punches. And so from like the 12th round, then the 13th round, they're like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can go out. I can hardly stand up. And they would go out and they would get this like inspiration, especially Muhammad Ali. I think in like the 13th round, his style was he used to dance around, but he had no strength to dance around. And somehow or other, it's just like he got it. He had to have it. It came. And he had all this energy that he didn't actually have. And then it came to the 14th round, and they were on their last leg of energy. And Joe Frazier, he was worn out. And Muhammad Ali had a little more energy than Joe Frazier, and Joe Frazier couldn't really fight anymore. And Muhammad Ali just, with every ounce of energy he had, he attacked him. And the referee had to stop because if they suspect this person cannot defend himself, cannot fight, if they let the other boxer fight, they could actually damage them. And he stopped and he said, we have to stop the fight. Or no. What happened was his own, what do you call those guys? Coaches? The people that, your own people, your trainers, your coaches, they stopped the fight. They wouldn't let him go out. They said, you don't have enough strength to go out. I can't let you go out. You could be, permanently damaged for life. You can't really fight. You have no energy left to fight. It was like this amazing fight. And so Muhammad Ali's sitting there thinking he has to go into 15th round, and he doesn't know how he's going to do it. He doesn't have an ounce of energy left. He doesn't know how he's going to fight. And then he hears that the trainers on the other side said, it's over. This fight is over. And, of course, Joe Frazier wanted to fight. And Muhammad Ali got up and he fell over. He had no energy. It was like interesting to see him fall over, because that meant if he went to fight again, he probably would have just fell over. But he was considered he won the fight. He got up and he fell over. He couldn't even walk. He was so exhausted. And I was watching this, and the reason I was watching this is because I said, I want to understand what it means to be like fixed on what you want to achieve. And it was so inspiring to me. He's like, why do you watch this? But it was like Tamal Krishna Maharaj with Michael Jordan. It was so inspiring. These two men were coming out. They weren't coming out to just play around. They were coming out to win. And I thought, that's it. That's the lesson. When you do something, you do it to win. You don't do it at like, well, is the water warm enough? Is it too cold, too warm? Let me get my toes wet. If a boxer or an athlete or a businessman or a student or anyone doesn't enter their game to win, they're going to get beaten up. They're going to lose. And you remember in the Gita, Krishna says, Prabhupada says, to become a devotee means to declare war on Maya. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, that's powerful. We are in a war with Maya. And if you put your guard down and say, I guess I kind of saw it like a boxing match. Somehow or boxing, I don't know. My father used to watch boxing. I never had any interest in boxing, ever. I never watched it. I never thought about it. Maybe it rubbed off on me because he used to watch it all the time. So I, just be around, walking through the room, looking at it for a few minutes. Two guys beating one another up. It's kind of like, why do you want to watch that? But when this analogy came, then in my mind I thought, it's a fight. It's a fight. And what you see in any kind of competition, especially in wrestling, martial arts, boxing, like that, it's all like their state of mind. And if they can, and sometimes they win the fight because they freak the other opponent out because they're so determined, it scares them. They think, this guy is like iron, I can't deal with him. So they try to do that also, but it's a fact. They come in with like, I'm going to win. My son he's into mixed martial arts. I didn't know anything about mixed martial arts. And he showed me about it. And he showed me this fight between a girl who was never defeated and this other girl. This other girl who never defeated was like, yeah, nobody can defeat me. I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. And this other girl came in and said, well, we're going to try. She came in really humble. It was just her persona. She said, well, the person I'm fighting has been an inspiration to me. She was like really ethical and grounded. And this other girl had won every fight. Mixed martial arts is you kick, you punch. It's kind of, and it's women doing this. It's like, yeah, they're basically, they're very, it's women fighting is very, it's not exactly like women. They're very strong. They've got a lot of male Shakti. And I think in 40 seconds, the champion who won every fight was defeated. I think in the first round, in 40 seconds, she was defeated. And they couldn't believe it. And when they asked the girl, how did you do that? She said, I came into the fight with a vision of how I was going to win and when I was going to win and what I was going to do. So she was like so determined. Like she saw the whole thing. She already had won the fight before it started. And then she executed what she saw and just disrupted, upset this whole situation because this other girl was undefeated. Nobody could even get close to defeating her, and this girl did it in like 40 seconds. And who was this girl? Nobody knew much about her. So these kinds of things, for some reason, ended up inspiring me because I don't have the nature of a fighter. Boxing is like fighting art. It's just not me. I'm more like intellectual and soft, and if somebody's angry, I'm not going to punch him. It's like, well, let's talk, And I think it interested in me to see, like, well, what are the mood of these guys? Because I lack that kind of I'm going to win type thing. Because for me, it's like, well, you win, you lose, just be detached. And I thought, no, well, when you're dealing with Maya, you can't think win, lose, be detached. You have to be, okay, so this is a fight. And this is how Prabhupada wanted us to go into our Krishna consciousness. Go in to win. Don't go in thinking, we'll try it, we'll see how it goes. If I don't do well, I always got the next life. He definitely didn't want us to do that. There's no question. 100% he didn't want us to go in like that. And if you read what Prabhupada says, if you hear his lectures, you can see, it's very clear, that was never his mood. His mood was, you're Muhammad Ali and you're going to win this fight. That's his mood. You're stepping into this arena of being a devotee. This is a war against Maya. And you go in thinking, Krishna, by your help and mercy, we're going to win this war. I can't do it without you. But I'm going to follow this process with determination. I'm going to do it and nothing's going to stop me. That's what Prabhupada wanted. So when I saw this fight, I almost felt like everyone has to see this fight. This is amazing. These guys gave everything to win this fight, so much so that at the end of the 14th round, neither of them had, these are boxers who train, who run 10 miles, 20 miles, jump rope for hours, punch bags, do this every day, lift weights, run with a rope around and tow a car, they do everything. And at the end of the 14th round, they both collapsed. They couldn't fight. They gave everything. And I thought, wow. That is so inspiring. Of course, their motive was to be number one. We understand that. But I thought that is such an example for us. Give everything, even, to that last ounce of energy, to follow what Prabhupada wants, to spread Krishna consciousness. And Krishna looks at that and goes, okay, you're out of here. The end of life, you're coming to me. There would be no question. And so Prabhupada's saying, yes, you do this, you dedicate yourself, you follow the process, you will be successful. Now, I didn't plan to speak that long. And this topic is very dear to me. And it's dear to me because I see there's devotees, it's common to have these doubts. Like, I don't know if I can do it in this life. And Prabhupada is here to say, you can, but you have to do it. And the only reason you can't do it is that you don't do it. That's a profound statement, right? The only reason you can't do it is you don't do it. But as simple as that is, that's the reason. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I guess I got inspired. To me, this is such an important, it's such an important topic because this is Prabhupada's whole mission. This is why Prabhupada came. And it's like, for me, as Prabhupada's disciple, it's like when I see what his mission is and I see it's not being understood, it concerns me. It bothers me. It's like, no. It's like, here, Prabhu, here's a diamond, and you're like looking at it going, but it just looks like a crystal or a piece of shiny glass, what's a diamond, It's kind of like that. Here, look at what Prabhupada's giving you. Yeah, but, you got to be real, and it's so hard, and everything's different, and you Prabhupada disciples, you had it different, and it was different in the 70s, and I'm thinking, that's not what Prabhupada is saying. That's not what Prabhupada's meant. That's not his message. His message is, a diamond is a diamond. It's always a diamond. Here's the diamond we're giving you. You can have this diamond. Just do what he said. And so, as a disciple of Prabhupada, when I see the diamonds being given, and then people are like, whatever, I'll just put it on my shelf. Maybe I'll use it. It's like, it drives me crazy. How does it drive me crazy? It depresses me. It's like, how could you just have something so valuable? It's like you have COVID and I have the medicine. You go, well, you say, I don't really know if it works. And, yeah, it works for some people. Maybe it won't work for me. I don't know. Let me think about it. And then you just die thinking about it. Like, that's painful to watch. So what the mood that I'm trying to communicate is that Prabhupada has actually given you something more valuable than anyone can ever give you. And to not realize that and to not take advantage of that is the greatest misfortune that could fall upon any of us. And to allow Maya to rule our life is the greatest misfortune that could befall any of us. And so it's hard for me, whether you're my disciple or a friend or disciple of my God brother, it's just hard for me to watch that because it doesn't have to happen. It's not necessary. We can do something about it. We have the tools to prevent that. We have the knowledge to prevent it. And then when we don't, it's really hard for me to sit there and look at it. Disciple or no disciple, it's just, you can go back to God in this lifetime. You've been here for unlimited lifetimes. To not take advantage of that, to not do what you have to do to achieve that, it makes absolutely no sense. And it hurts me. It hurts me in the sense that Prabhupada did so much. Prabhupada did so much to give that message, to give that knowledge. And then we who are his devotees, we don't take it. We don't read his books. We don't chant well. It's almost in a sense, and I know this will sound maybe heavy, but look at it this way. It's almost in a sense like a slap in the face. Like, I know you came with all this knowledge and you dedicated your life to writing these books, but I don't really like reading them. And I really just don't like reading that much. And I like reading these other books, by these self-help gurus. And I know the holy name, but I'm very passionate. It's hard to sit and control my mind. I really don't like the It's like, like, what are you saying? And devotees say these things. And we, especially as Prabhupada disciples, when we hear devotees saying these things, we think, how is it possible you could say that? We feel like we must have failed you in helping you understand who Prabhupada is and what he's giving if you feel like that. Like this is, what he's giving is infinitely more valuable than anything you can get anywhere. Because no matter what anyone's giving you, they may give you you may learn many great things from many teachers. But unless they're Gaudiya Vaishnavas, their teachings are not taking you back to Godhead. And those are the teachings that take you back to Godhead. And the Prabhupada's like introducing you to the greatest minds and the greatest sadhus in our acharya, in our disciplic succession. That's who he's giving us. So it's like, what more could you want than that? And so I just wanted, I think it's important for you when you're trying to advance in Krishna consciousness to look at it through the eyes of the people who are giving it to you, when what they're feeling when they give it to you and what they're expecting, because that will help you. Oh, this is what my Guru Maharaj expects. Oh, when Prabhupada said this is what he expects of me to understand. This is what he expects of me to do. That can help you overcome the excuses of, oh, that's hard to do. I don't know if I could do that. No. Prabhupada would not tell you to do it if you couldn't do it. At least he wants you to try to do it. That's the idea. So I've had a realization it's a kind of a simple realization, but it's become cooked down recently. And it's becoming cooked down like almost every day that we're having these classes because, and I think it's happening for you also, as we're reading Prabhupada's words, we're realizing these words are cutting through every bit of Maya that can exist in our mind. These are not the words of an ordinary person. They cut through. They're cutting to reality. He's telling it like it is, and we need to hear that. And Prabhupada's words, especially the words in his books, especially the Siddhanta that he's giving, it's very, very powerful. When we started these classes, I had devotees write me and say, these classes have helped me so much. They've transformed my spiritual life. And I was thinking, okay, why are they saying that? And I was thinking, there's two things. We're doing it every day, and we're hearing every day Prabhupada's words, and we're supposed to hear every day. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, in not today's class, but in many of the classes, especially in the beginning, we were reading a lot, much more than you would read in a Bhagavatam class. We would read, discuss, read, discuss, read, discuss. We were hearing Prabhupada a lot. And that was part of my plan. And I was thinking, I think that a lot of devotees are hearing these classes are hearing Prabhupada more now than they normally do. And that's why they're getting affected so much, because Prabhupada's words are so powerful. And then every day we're reading. Some days we read pages of what Prabhupada said. And that effect of being able to hear every day, day after day, consistently, is so transforming, because it's just cutting through various layers of Maya. And, devotees might have said to me, that was a nice class, but to say that this is transforming, is totally changing my life, that has to be because every day we're hearing Prabhupada's words, and that's the power of Prabhupada's words. So as we were doing these classes, and I'm sure you're having the same realization, we're realizing, wow, or like Krishna Karshani was saying, her husband said, I'm getting addicted to these classes. I go, that's really good. We're getting addicted to hearing about Prabhupada. And all I was trying to do in these classes was stick exactly to what Prabhupada was saying and explain it as I understood it in the context of other things he said, similar things, and into the depth that I understand it. So we weren't bringing in other books. We weren't bringing in other ideas. We were just sticking to what we're reading from Prabhupada, elaborating on what we're reading, bringing in other sources from Prabhupada. So it was very Prabhupada-centric katha. And so people saying, this is changing my life, or I'm getting addicted to hearing this. I was thinking, and I was feeling, I can't exactly describe, but I mean, I'm studying, for an hour or two or three before I give class, and then I get to read what I'm studying and explain it. So for me, the class is an hour and a half, but there's 1 to 2 to 3 hours before. So for me, it's a minimum of 2.5 and sometimes up to 4.5 hours in the morning, just with Prabhupada's words, studying them, choosing the ones I want to teach that I think are most relevant, then teaching them, and then again reading them. And so after doing this for like 3-4 weeks, I was starting to feel extremely detached, maybe more detached. I don't know if it's detachment is the word. I was kind of feeling like, how can I say this without it sounding like I'm proud? But I was kind of feeling like, okay, I'll say it this way, safe, completely safe at the shelter of Prabhupada, like there was no Maya, like not thinking of Krishna 24/7 was kind of like impossible. Like, how could you not think of Krishna? And how could there be Maya? It was like Maya was like put to rest kind of, and Krishna just like overcame me, and Maya just went away. And I do my service during the day, 8, 10, 12 hours a day I have service. And I'm sitting with this feeling, and I'm thinking, this is a very unusual feeling, at least not unusual, but unusual, the intensity, the depth of it. This is quite unusual. I feel like no connection with Maya in the material world. and just feel like, how could you not think of Krishna? He's everywhere. Because this is what we're talking about every day. Krishna's everywhere, accept what's happening. He could die at any moment. And I was developing this whole mood of like extreme detachment. Yeah, I could die at any moment, whatever, it's Krishna's desire. And so many problems with COVID, and we're helpless. And we're talking about these things every day. And they just were like, yeah, that's just how it is. And I'm sure that must have happened to you to some degree also. And so as we were going through this, I was seeing this is the process that Prabhupada gave us. So when he says you can go back to Godhead in this lifetime, we're experiencing, yes, if you read, if you study, this is what happens. You become detached. You become more Krishna conscious. You want Krishna more. And if you don't do that, then you have to deal with Maya. Maya will come and create all kinds of excuses and rationale for being in Maya. I'm like this, I'm like that, I can't do that. If I were like this, in another birth, then I can do it. It was like everything that we're rationalizing is nothing that Prabhupada said. All those rationales, all those excuses, they're not from Prabhupada's books. They're totally Maya talking to us. I was just listening to something my godbrother was reading yesterday, and I forget the exact context. But Prabhupada was talking about chanting and how we'll get you out of Maya. And then he said, otherwise, Maya will tell you so many things. She will tell you so many things. She will put so many thoughts in your mind. And when I heard that, I said, yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about in all these classes. How, when Krishna is not there, Maya's right there with all these crazy ideas. So when we have all these crazy ideas of how we can't be Krishna conscious, how we can't surrender, etc., we have to understand Maya is putting those ideas in our mind. And Maya is so powerful. She puts those ideas in our mind, and then we tell ourselves, I'm just using my intelligence. I'm just being real. I mean, how subtle is Maya? Isn't it? Isn't it a fact? We think, well, I'm just using my intelligence. This is just the reality. This is just how it is. And I have to be realistic about this. And we're just making excuses for taking another birth. And it's unadulterated Maya camouflaged as, I'm just using my intelligence. I'm just being logical. I'm being rational. I'm being real. But when it's like we're reading every day. Every day we read, we're hearing. You can't think like that when you're reading every day. It's like it becomes ridiculous to think like that because Prabhupada is cutting through all of that. And so as we were reading every day, I was thinking, more than ever, I'm realizing, I understood this, but it was on an emotional level. I'm realizing the power of Prabhupada's words on me and on all of us. This is, and how important those words are, and consequentially, how important those books are, and how unfortunate it is for those who are not reading regularly. And then I began thinking, all the problems that devotees face and all the difficulties they're facing that they wouldn't have to face if they did this process regularly, every day, hearing, learning more, going into Prabhupada's words. Now, there's a lot of other things to hear. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mangal, Brihad Bhagavatam. There's so many things to hear. But especially for younger devotees, or devotees who do not have a firm, who have not been hearing regularly Prabhupada's books, to hear anything else on a regular basis is dangerous. It's actually dangerous. Because Prabhupada's words are specifically tailored to exactly what our heart needs to be Krishna conscious. You could say it's even dangerous for advanced devotees to neglect Prabhupada's instruction because they'll start to, in a sense, maybe distance ourselves a bit from Prabhupada's heart. But especially for younger devotees, because Prabhupada's words are tailor-made medicines, boutique medicines for our anarthas. But that's an interesting statement, isn't it? What do you think of that, Kamaniya? Prabhupada's words are boutique medicines for our anarthas, for our specific. He knows exactly, like, the herbalist, the boutique herbalist has all these amazing herbs and mixes them up, and then. So, it was just like every day it was going deeper in me, like how powerful these words are. And then I could see, as you all can, that no matter how powerful is Maya, these words are way more powerful than any stupid thing Maya can tell you. These words are way more powerful than that. But if you don't have these words, then you don't have the ammunition to deal with it. I'm going to plug my phone in, and sometimes when I plugged it in the past, it went warble, warble, gargle, gargle, started making noise. So just let me know. Tailor-made for an art. Prabhupada's words are tailor-mixed. Prabhupada's words are medicines, tailor-made to cure our anarthas. That's it, something like that. So I just wanted to tell all of you that when I see devotees struggling, when I see devotees in Maya, when I see devotees making excuses, and I see it all the time. It happens to me all the time. It really hurts because it doesn't have to be that way. If we get some taste for the holy name, if we get some taste for reading Prabhupada's books, everything changes. It's not that your problems will go away, it's just your problems won't have any effect on you. That's the sign of Krishna consciousness. Not that overnight there's no anarthas, not that there's no problems in this world that will not affect, that you will not deal with, but they won't have much effect on you. They won't stop you from chanting good rounds. They won't stop you from your service. They won't cause you to make excuses. They won't have any significant effect on you. But when we're not in that right state of consciousness, they will have a significant effect. And when Prabhupada sees you in that situation, Prabhupada is thinking, I've given you everything. How can you be in that situation? I've given you the medicine. The medicine will cure all those problems. How can you be in that? How can you allow yourself? How can you make excuses? How can you allow yourself to get in a corner because of how you're feeling today, or because of what someone told you last week? How can you allow that to stop your service? Why are you allowing that to affect your rounds? Why are you allowing that to compromise your sadhana? That's what Prabhupada is thinking. And I think it's so useful and so powerful when you're looking at your Krishna consciousness to contextualize it from the perspective of the people who are trying to help you and how they might be seeing you. I've given you everything and you're not digesting it. I've given you all you need and you're not digesting it. That's very powerful. Okay, you made so many comments and I've skipped them all. And now it's 9:25. And oh my Govinda, how are we going to go through all the comments? And it's going to remind us, going back to the comments is kind of like a review of the whole class, which is interesting. So Kamaniya, she's nice because she finds something that resonates with her, or she feels valuable for all of you, and she puts it in the comment. It's a service to your guru to go back to Godhead. So now we're getting a little summary. And so if we don't want to go back to Godhead, then what are we doing in this movement? Whoa, that's it. Did I say that? It's just so funny. Kamini, you don't know how funny this is for me to read what I just said in the last hour? Because so often when you speak or write and then you read it, you have no idea. It's like, who said that? That's nice. It's so interesting. That means Krishna is inspiring us. We're not speaking. knowing that we have also much help in saving ourselves, it feels very good. Yeah, you don't have to do it alone. I'm wondering about George Harrison. He was very dear to Prabhupada and did great service. I heard that during Prabhupada's last days, he at one point took off his ring and called the disciple closer and said, "Give this to George." Prabhupada was surrounded by his senior disciples, but he was thinking of George Harrison and wanted to bless him with an intimate gift. I was thinking that Srila Prabhupada could surely just decide to take someone like him back to Godhead simply because he would. Yeah, it's true. He could do that. And so let's please Prabhupada so much that he becomes impelled to take us back to Godhead. Christy's asking, what other factors would mean that we have not executed our duties as devotees well, assuming we're following the four regular principles and chanting japa? Just the instructions that Prabhupada gives in his books. Doing things well, conscientiously, sufficient, trying to be develop the right consciousness that Prabhupada has asked us to develop, avoiding things that are detrimental to our bhakti. This is all after taking allergy medicine this morning. That's unbelievable, right? I'm allergic to the atoms in Alachua. That's the problem. The atoms in the summer. We must desire to know how to desire. Krishna Karshani, did I understand you properly what you said that someone may come back to Krishna if we made special service and we got special mercy, even if we may not completely pure? Yeah. It seems that's what Prabhupada's saying. It's one way of understanding it. Myself know devotees who are doing amazing service for their guru, but they're neglecting their sadhana. It's something that Prabhupada seemed to indicate is true, but he never indicated that. Well, he never said, distribute books your entire life and you go back to Godhead, which therefore means you don't have to chant 16 rounds and follow the four regular principles. He never said it that way. And we could imply that in order to do that service, you would have to chant 16 rounds and four regular principles. Well, to be able to do it your entire life. So that implication was never made. But Prabhupada saying, this service is so dear to Krishna, so pleasing to Krishna, that if you do this, Krishna will take you back to Godhead. That's the implication. But then we can say, how could you do that service if you weren't chanting properly? Vijay Lakshmi says, a pure devotee wants to serve Krishna and does not care where he is sent. He just wants to serve. And when you feel that way, he sends you back to Godhead or he sends you to another universe to preach. Well, Vijay Lakshmi, when you take medicine that makes you sleepy and you only sleep 5 hours a night, the sleep effect seems to last all day. That was my problem. I gave a class on that day. I took that medicine, and after class, I laid back in my chair, and an hour and a half later, I became conscious again. So I'm a little afraid of that medicine. Even born in advantageous families, surely internal enemies try to bring down and still attack. Definitely. In other words, subtle battles that can keep up quietly. Yeah. So there's no ideal situation. There are more advantageous situations, which means you can take advantage of them. But if you don't take advantage of them, then they're not advantageous. Right? So be born in a good family, it's good. But if you don't take advantage of it and you give in to your anarthas, it's not good. And if you're born in a bad family, but you take advantage of Prabhupada, then you're going to be better. That's, the ultimate message, really. Perhaps uncultured is a good substitute for lower class. I think that's true. I think degraded I mean, it's tamasic activity, a person who's bound by tamagun. So, uncultured, degraded, fallen. Uncultured is good. Unpolished. George Harrison was in Prabhupada Leela. He was a Prabhupada Nuga Bhakta, and he left his body with devotees, chanting Hare Krishna. I think he came back to Godhead. A lot of times Prabhupada said, if you die while chanting or hearing the chanting, you'll go back to Godhead. Well, so that's another, that adds to our list of how can you get back to Godhead? Know Krishna in truth, build Mayapur temple, distribute books, and all the other things Prabhupada said, and chant Hare Krishna or hear the chanting at the time of death. Though it doesn't quite fit for a Jamil, he was a tad more than uncultured. Uncultured it's quite a cultured word. It's polite. I think degraded is what we want to say. Fallen. Degraded is, I think, accurate description of a Jamil, and more so a Jamil than Magari, because a Jamil fell. So the sense of degraded is you went down. Magari the hunter is just his life was almost barbaric, almost cannibalistic. I don't think he was killing and eating humans, but it was barbaric. Thank you for the sharing. You're welcome, Madhava. Sussing it out is definitely British. Means checking it out, right? I brought that word over. I learned it in England. I brought it over to America. So a lot of American devotees have learned it from me. So what does that mean? It means check it out. Oh, okay. And then they're saying, let's suss it out, and everyone else, what does that mean? You're in America. Nobody knows. Katerina says, thank you. It's a wonderful class. If we have faith and surrender to Krishna, then anything is possible. Definitely. Wow. This hit me hard. Prabhupada thinks you can do it. I think it's an important point, because why would Prabhupada give this if he didn't think we could succeed? He would have just given up. Vijay Lakshmi says, there's a saying in India which says that if you wish for something dearly, all the divine forces will come together to work in your favor. Yeah. Unfortunately, we read Vyas Puja we read a Vyas Puja offering of Bhakti Choraswami where he kind of expressed that he was ready to leave. It was in 2012. I know other devotees who expressed that desire, they were ready to leave, and Krishna let them leave, like that. They're through accidents. So I kind of understand that, I kind of understand that dying is difficult. That's not what I want to say. Obviously dying is difficult, and you have to go some way, and the body breaks down. And with two devotees, very close to, it happened a year or two ago, with two devotees, and within like a month of one another, and they both, we found out, had expressed desires to not want to live, and they died like that in accidents. Like, it must have been like, it was like, boom, and they were gone. It's just like that. You don't even know what happened. Like an easy way to die. And we look at it and think, oh, it was a horrible death. But they both wanted to leave, and they both left for Vrindavan. Interesting, right? So, it's true. Be careful what you desire. And Krishna is the ultimate fulfiller of desires. Prabhupada's message that you relay is inspiring me to try to prioritize bhakti in my daily life. Hopefully it would help me improve. Yeah, maybe Vikash, you need to watch the fight between Muhammad. Well, you don't have to watch the whole fight. Just watch like the last 3 or 4 rounds. Maybe you need to watch that and just go, okay, this is what it means to be determined. You give it everything. You go in to win, and you give it everything. You will not give up until you win. Kamalakshi says, it's wonderful to understand that as long as we follow the process, we will be successful. How do we understand and incorporate the concept that Krishna also has to give us mercy, as in the Damodar. Only by His mercy. That's how you get the mercy. Act like everything depends on you. Pray like everything depends on God. So, it's like you take it upon yourself to follow. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna do everything I can to go back to Godhead. But you understand that everything you're doing is going to give you the mercy, and it's not like you're doing it. You're executing the action, but the action is giving you the mercy, and the mercy is what is doing it. So that's how you understand. You don't think, oh, I'm just going to blast through the Brahma Jyoti to Goloka Vrindavan. It's not like that. I'm going to do what my guru asked me to do. I'm going to do what Prabhupada asked me to do, and therefore get the mercy so that I can do it. Dear devotees, Michael Jordan is a very famous American basketball player. In case you didn't know, because it's America. Everybody must know Michael Jordan, right? Of course, in America, we think if we're famous in America, we're famous everywhere. It's true, Muhammad Ali was very close to Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Bhakti Tirtha Swami was visiting him when I was in LA. And he used to bring him cookies, and Muhammad Ali liked the cookies. So Muhammad Ali drank a lot of prasadam. Not drank. I'm drinking. I think he's drinking. He ate. That was a slip. Wasn't that funny? Did not know about TKG and Michael Jordan. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because I've found in my life that if there's something I'm trying to cultivate in terms of a quality, sometimes I get very inspired when I see that quality, and it doesn't have to be in a devotee. And I can't deny that it inspires me. And someone may say, why are you getting inspired by this? And I say, and I think, this is how I feel and think, I think because Krishna has endowed that person with a particular Shakti that I feel I'm lacking, and by looking at that person, I understand what that Shakti is. And one time I heard about some people who became successful, who were very determined. And I realized that they were more determined to be successful materially than I was determined to be successful in Krishna consciousness. And it was explained to me their mentality, what they were thinking. And it was said that they were thinking, not that I'm going to try, but they had eliminated in their mind any possibility of not succeeding. And then the speaker said, that's the difference between wanting something and committing. And that resonated with me. I said, oh, that's interesting. I want to be Krishna conscious. That is different than I'm committed to be. So they said, when you're committed, then there's no question that any other outcome other than being. And it was told to me by a person who was that committed. And so it made a distinction. And that person, I'm not inspired to live their life or be committed to what they're committed to. But in that moment, it helped me related to my Krishna consciousness. So like Chanaka says, you can get gold from a filthy place. Krishna says, I'm the ability of man. So I've always found it useful to, if you notice something, notice it. If you know, I would often say, when I was young, I was a surfer, and we would surf in the winter, and it was very cold, sometimes very, very cold. And sometimes very austere. The ocean was very rough. It was hard to paddle out. And then as a brahmachari, we would have to take these cold showers. And I would always think, oh, I did this for my sense gratification. So, you know, right now there's some surfer somewhere surfing in Ireland in freezing weather, and I'm complaining about a cold shower. You know, so sometimes it's inspiring. I used to walk in parks, and I'd see these people running, like 70 years old. They're running at 5 a.m. And you know, I could think, you know, they're going to be horses in their next life, or they eat too much, so they have to run. Both of which may be true. But I preferred to think, this person is so determined to be successful in life and to be healthy that they're up at 5 a.m. doing this austerity. I should take inspiration. that in my own bhakti, I should be as inspired. I thought, why not think that way? It helps me. So I became I think I became fascinated with boxing, although never in my life fascinated with it, because I felt like that sometimes to be successful, you need that kind of aggression. You need that kind of, we have to do this, we have to do it perfectly, we're going to do it. And it's not, I wasn't born with an aggressive nature. And I could see sometimes in my life that that's very helpful to not have that aggressive nature. It's very good for relationships. It's very good for being in Sattva Gun. But I also could see that sometimes I could have been more successful if I were more aggressive, more like, no, we're going to do this, we have to do it, there's no question. And so when I saw that quality in the boxer mentality, I thought, oh, that's what I need a little more of that. That's helpful. So I thought, this was supposed to be like the greatest fight ever. I go, you come on YouTube and it's like, greatest fight ever. I go, well, let me look at that. Going through it as quickly as I can. I don't want to spend a lot of time. And then when we got to those last rounds, I was like, oh my God, these guys have given their whole life. They are so focused on winning. And they have no energy left. And it was so amazing. What was one of the most amazing things was, I think it was the 12th round that Muhammad Ali told his trainers, he said, I have no energy to fight anymore. And they said, you have to find that energy somewhere. And Muhammad Ali's style of fighting was he would dance around. So it was really hard for boxers to get to him because he was always like a moving target. And it takes a lot of energy to dance around. And you can do it in the beginning of the fight, but towards the end, the fighters wear down. And that's one of the ways you win a fight, as the guy's worn down. If you can still go, you can take advantage. And so he was totally worn down. And dancing was what was necessary. He felt it was a necessary tactic. He always used it. And he went out in the 13th round and started dancing. It's like, and the announcers was like, where did this energy come from? And it was just an example that when you are determined, somehow some energy, it just comes, it's just given to you because you want to achieve so much. And I was reading this story about Bhakti Charaswami, and someone was doing something, and Maharaj told him, you're not doing it well enough. You can do it better. It's not perfect. Make it perfect. Do it better. It's for Prabhupada. And so it was like that mood of like that we have to be as good as we can. We have to be the best. We have to do our service the best. There are people who are born with that mood, that mentality. And some of us are not born with it. But really, it's like Prabhupada's saying, we need that mentality if we want to be successful in Krishna consciousness. So I got inspired by that. So I feel, you may get inspired, you may not. But if there's something you see in another person that can help you in your Krishna consciousness, why not? Sometimes you see a person very humble. You think, I need to be like that. That person inspired me. Well, why not take the inspiration and use it for Krishna? At least for me, it works. I don't sit around watching boxing. I don't sit around watching people singing and so on. But occasionally, there's some singers that are so good, it inspires me to sing like that for Krishna. You sing like so well. You put so much emotion into that. That should be for Krishna. Let me sing as well as you for Krishna. Let's do that that's how I feel. This has been wasted. Or you're an actor and you watch a fantastic actor, you get inspired. We should be that good for Krishna. Or sometimes writers read books, other people's books, novels, to learn, to think, I want to write that way for Krishna. So, if you keep it in a Krishna conscious context, then it could work. But be careful. Krishna Karsini says, I believe we're finding excuses, and I am talking about myself also, because our desire to go to Krishna is not strong. Exactly. The truth is that willpower is so powerful that if we would really want something, obstacles won't matter. So it seems the solution is to make the desire to go to Krishna stronger than excuses, and then excuses will disappear. I am taking from my own perspective, I see that I'm not strong enough desire to go to Krishna. Yeah, and Krishna Karshani, if you're reading Prabhupada's books every day, that desire will become strong. You need to read more. It's really, really important. And anyone who's not reading sufficiently, at least 1 or 2 hours, you need at least an hour. It's like if you want to cure the disease of Maya, you have to take the medicine Prabhupada has created, and you have to take enough of it. And if you take enough of it, you'll be okay. Maya will try to get you, but you'll have enough inoculation now in you that you won't succumb. So that's where your desire to become Krishna conscious is going to become stronger, because you're reading. And if you read enough, Prabhupada just making the case of 100 reasons why we should be Krishna conscious, and 100 ways Maya will try to divert you. So you're getting that in your intelligence. It's very clear. Yeah, we need to become allergic to Maya. Definitely. And I've said that many times. And I pray, Ekaterina, that you become allergic to Maya. So I'd have to leave. I will listen later. Got work meeting. Okay, Jai Radhe. Catch you later. Parker knows. Ronda Rousey. She's Polish, right? It was her first loss. Yeah. And the interesting thing about this girl who beat her, she was like extremely humble. And after the fight, when they talked to you, and you said, this other girl is like, I respect her so much. That was interesting. She had this like super humble, she maintained this humble attitude, and she destroyed a person in fighting. So if you ever say, you can't be powerful and humble, the girl who won this fight she embodied both. It was amazing. I knew nothing about mixed martial arts until my son turned me on, but it's kind of brutal sport. Joanna Jyotirmai says, if I have understood well, winning in the material world has not only to do with will, but also our karma. Yes. I believe that only in Krishna consciousness, your previous karma doesn't count here, Krishna's mercy. Yeah, I think we'd have to say things are synergistic. They combine together. And Krishna can use your karma for whatever, or destroy your karma. But Prabhupada said, when we become a devotee, the karma it's slowing down, so there's still some effects. But at the same time, Krishna can change it, and he may not want to change it. And it's not something you always perfectly understand in every situation. But ultimately, you keep going and following the process, knowing that this is transcendental. And if I follow, I'll be successful. We've been listening in rapt attention. We're still going on. I'm sorry we're going so long. I want to get through your questions, comments. Prabhupada said, never give up. Start and restart. One day you'll be successful. Yeah. The way you become successful is you never give up. And the only people who fail are the ones who give up. I did have these thoughts in the beginning a lot, but by reading Prabhupada's books, and yours now as well, it finally started shifting. Today I feel like I was punched with a fist of knowledge. Okay, get punched with a fist of knowledge. Should that be the title of today's class? Punched with a fist of knowledge. I thought it was slashed with the sword of knowledge. It's now become punched with the fist of knowledge. If we want Krishna, we must fight hard for him with all our being. Yeah, we have to have, it's like you have to have this little fighter Kshatriya spirit. I did miss the beginning of class due to some of my friends. Mom passed away. Oh. Okay. Yeah, difficult. Dying, it's such a... Dying is always unexpected and painful. And we're going to give a class Thursday. What time Thursday? Look for the ad. I think it's Thursday noon. how to cope with the passing of a devotee or passing of anyone, especially devotee. So that's going to be helpful. I think I should listen to this class every day. Me too. I'm saying me too also. I should follow what I say. Okay. Thank you for staying over time and listening. And please share this class if you think other people can benefit from it. Should we have this class transcribed? Do you think that would help? Because Christy is willing to transcribe. Christy is transcribing yesterday's class. And we're editing yesterday's class just to get the essence of what I was saying about the heart of Bhakti Charaswami. So that's going to also be available as a shorter version. And then we're going to have the transcript, which I think is nice to read. And we will see you all tomorrow. Well, we'll see you tonight if you want to come tonight at 7 with Spanish translation. You're all invited. That's on Zoom, and everything should be on Facebook, the ads. And I don't know, or on it should also be on my website. If the devotees are doing their job, then everything will go on the website. And you can get all the links in one place. Okay, Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.